Dustin, good to see you. Great question today. How old is too old for a Roth conversion? Taxes are set to increase in 2026, and even though it may not feel like it, we are living in a historically low tax rate right now. So let's talk through the pros and cons of a Roth conversion for someone in their 70s. First, the pros. If you convert your IRA to a Roth IRA, you and your beneficiaries will have tax-free withdrawals.
Right. Let's talk about why that's particularly important. So it used to be the case that a non-spouse beneficiary, like your kids, could do what's called stretch that IRA. They could take required minimum distributions over the rest of their lifetime based on their life expectancy. So they could take a very small amount each year and continue to defer that account. Well, with the passage of the Secure Act in 2019, most of those non-spouse beneficiaries now have to distribute that account inside of 10 years. And remember, many times those kids are inheriting those accounts in their 50s or 60s during their peak earning years when their taxes couldn't be higher. So not a great idea to, in particular, set aside tax deferred plans for inheritance. Much better in those cases to at least consider something like conversions. Or one of the other things you might consider is making some systematic withdrawals or taking your required minimum distribution and using that to purchase some life insurance where you could leave a large income tax-free death benefit to those beneficiaries.
And just to remind everybody too, all future growth that happens in those Roth accounts happens tax-free.
Certainly. And that's not just important to your beneficiaries. That can position you for a much more sustainable retirement.
Right.
If, for example, we assume, let's say, a 20% tax rate, what that means is if you get $1 worth of growth inside a tax-deferred account, like a traditional IRA or a 401k, it's really only worth 80 cents to you when you distribute it and pay the taxes. However, if you get if you get $1 worth of growth in a tax-exempt account like a Roth, that's worth 100 cents to you. So oftentimes what we may do is we may position a client's tax deferred money on the front end of their plan and start spending those tax deferred dollars and take the most growth oriented portion of a client's plan, that money that they may not touch for some years, put that on the back end of the plan and things like equities where we can really grow those dollars, grow them tax free, grow 100-cent dollars. And each year that goes by, your tax position can get better, your retirement can become more sustainable, and your estate position for your beneficiaries becomes better.
Mm-hmm. Next pro, no required minimum distributions, which means that you have more control over your tax liability.
Certainly. Depending upon your age, let's say somebody has to start taking RMDs at age 73. Well, if you think about it, that person really only has full control of that tax deferred account for 13 years out of their lifetime. Prior to age 59 and a half, in most cases, if you make a withdrawal, you're going to pay a 10% tax penalty. And at 73, if that's when you're starting RMDs, if you miss an RMD, a required minimum distribution, you're going to get hit with a 25% tax penalty. So one of the drawbacks to traditional tax deferred retirement accounts is there's not a whole lot of control. Conversions can help you take back some of that control, not just for the investor or the retiree, but also for their beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now let's move on to the con. When you convert, you will pay all those taxes up front, which could mean a big tax bill come April.
Sure. And optimally, what you want to do is, if you're looking at a conversion, the best way to do it is if you've got some assets set aside in cash or set aside in some other taxable account that we can use to pay the taxes with, something outside of the retirement account. That said, keep in mind, you're going to pay those taxes. You're either going to pay the taxes on withdrawals from that account, or you're going to pay the taxes when you convert, or your kids are going to pay those taxes when they inherit that account. There's no avoiding it. And we don't know for sure if future tax rates are going to be higher or lower than they are today. Here's what we do know. We know that you've got the opportunity to consider paying some taxes today on your own terms at known tax rates that are much lower than they were in 2017 and that are much lower than they will be at the end of 2025, absent new legislation.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then let's just get down to brass tacks, Dustin. Let's say I'm 70 years old and I can pay that tax bill in cash. Is the answer a yes? At what age does it become a no?
There's not really an age where it necessarily becomes a no. I would say that's especially true If we're talking about something like an inheritance for the kids, it all comes down to doing some planning.
Mm,
We'll often try to help a client estimate where they fall in the tax brackets, so we can help them estimate that true cost of doing the conversion, and then decide if the juice is worth the squeeze.
there we go. Well, Dustin, if somebody would like to sit down and crunch the numbers with you, what's the best way to reach you?
They can send me a text at 830-476-2505 or reach out on the web to book a free chat at longlivemymoney.com.
Great. Dustin, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.